Hello and welcome to the SCOUTCAST. My name is Joe.
My name's David.
It's Karam.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back, Karam. It's been a couple of weeks, and welcome back, David. I saw you for the Captaincy video. I just want to point out to everyone that David is busy doing a lot of fantasy football scout stuff at the moment. He's multitasking away. So for the early stages, we're just going to sort of leave him be a little bit quiet for the moment because the Leeds-Southampton game has just finished. So he has things to write up and things to do for the site there. So this is a bit of an unusual Scoutcast because sometimes we broadcast during the matches, sometimes it's after, and sometimes it's a day after. But it's quite rare that it's literally like 5 minutes after a match because we haven't yet had a Scoutcast just after those 6 o'clock kickoffs there. So yeah, Karam, what's coming up in the show?
Right, so we just finished double game week, the mini double game week 25, and we are going ahead of the biggest double game week probably since, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years, probably ever. Double game week 26, it's a massive one. So there's a lot to discuss around options, transfers, and captaincy. Well, luckily for the viewers, I'm going to wildcard this week. Well, hopefully it doesn't go wrong, but if it does, we need the opportunity to show it at least. So we will try to help the viewers to frame the discussion. We will take in a wider strategy involving other chips and the blank of the double game weeks to come, as well as reveal our captaincy and transfer plans. The first game week 25 has just finished, of course, and we can start checking our scores. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. So what we've done is we put the pictures up for our scores, but this was before the Leeds-Southampton game. It's been quite a good match for some of us. Well, you know, in varying degrees. So, Karam, you're going to go first. I'm not sure what your current score is, but you were going into the Southampton-Leeds game with 57 points. You had Pope in goal, Cancelo, me, Diaz, and Stones. Rafinha, who scored tonight. Fernandes, Salah, Son, Ings, who was benched tonight, annoyingly, and Bamford, who you captained, who scored tonight. And on your bench, it was quite a pacey bench there. Antonio and Lookman, and Martinez and Kufal. So quite a high bench score. What do you know what you're on now at the moment?
Yeah, I just checked, and it seems that I'm gonna
finish on 78 points.
Okay.
Which is, I think, a few points above the top 10k average, which has been okay until the Dallas haul, because I don't have him, and I imagine he's on massively in some tiers already. So 78. I think I moved just inside the 700k. It's been a dreadful season. I can't even figure out how to climb up the ranks, and the more I try, the more I find myself stuck. But yeah, anyway, I found full house of clean sheets with a triple City and double Burnley. It was quite enjoying to watch Burnley resisting the clean sheet wipeout, like thanks to Tarkowski cleaning up the line. And so I think one of the main problems I had here is the bench. I think a couple of weeks ago, I going ahead of game week 24 I was planning to bench boost because I had a decent bench, and I got 29 points from my bench boost in game week 24, which looked very decent. Going into game week 25, I didn't realize that I need another bench boost because I ended up benching Antonio and Lookman for a mighty 18 points together, while I had to watch Salah and Ings blanking all of them. So it could have been a bit better, but currently it was a dead end. Wild card active now. Take out the money from the bench. I don't want to see bench points. So that's good news at least.
So do you have your bench boost still to go?
I use it in 24.
So that's
and I
hate the bench boost. So
I found it a great opportunity after having a decent bench with a Burnley as well. So I decided to get rid of it. And Lookman, he blanked in a double game week where I used a bench boost on him, and he hauled when I benched him. So it was not ideal, but 29 points was decent. And now I can focus on a strategy that does not involve my bench. So that's at least a relief.
Well, luckily we can have a look at your wild card in a bit, because it's a good way. We did this before when Seb wildcarded. When you got a double game week, it's a great way of framing the chat, because you've got a free reign. So the players that you're considering, you can within budget do what you like. So it's a good way of discussing the best captaincy and the best transfer plans. So this was me prior to tonight. So I was on 51. But I'm now on 87. Thank you, Leeds, my second favourite team. So yeah, clean sweep across the bat. Ederson, Stones, Loughton, who once again returned. Dallas, who had a huge score tonight because he scored and got a clean sheet on top of his 2 points, and maximum bonus, I think. So big score there. Rafina scored as well. Fernandez got 12 points. Salah, Gundogan, Ings benched sadly. So I had 2 free transfers. I used them on getting Ings and Rafina in. So Rafina paid off, Ings didn't. Calvert-Lewin off the bench against Liverpool for 4 points, and Bamford was my captain. So overall, very pleased. I actually benched Jack Grealish. So there was a lot of furore about Jack Grealish and who, the Villa camp, who on earth could have leaked this amazing news that Jack Grealish was injured. Well, it was just the training pictures and people picked it up, and then it was confirmed after deadline that a number of their players had got rid of him, but that was after the deadline. So that's
and since then the media has been blaming FPL for that,
and blaming it, and poor old FPL gets blamed for it. That's
And moreover, it turned out that Pep doesn't know anything about FPL. So what was he doing to us in the last 5 years or so? Like he's cemented now as the best, as the most villain to FPL community.
Because there's rules around gambling, around players obviously gambling, and you can't, there's rules around that. But I don't think they're quite geared up for the fact of people just playing a game and there isn't actually money changing hands. And they're just doing it for fun. So players like, say, Patrick Bamford captaining himself. But it's probably just seen as a bit of a laugh, really. I remember the Stoke side; they were really good at it, and I think was it Rory Delap or one of the Stoke players was really good at FPL. But I guess now it's just come to the point where people are, the team news is easy to find because you just. Who are the physios transferring out? Why would the Villa physios be getting rid of Jack Grealish? That's like
although the transferring out is not always about injured players. There was one of the stuff in Leicester, for example, took Barnes out before Liverpool where he hauled. So it didn't really mean that Barnes would have missed out, but it's just a way to blame FPL for that. But
so I'm okay.
We will see next week if any physios or stuff keep transferring out or they are all banned.
Well, they've all been banned. I'd be heartbroken if Patrick Bamford has to give up his team. He's done ever so well for himself.
Yeah, he has a double game week.
I don't know. I might cry. I'd be so heartbroken for Patrick Bamford because he's been consistently captaining himself and backing himself. And you think even if he was injured, he wouldn't get himself out. So my bench was okay this week. I'm not strong enough for a bench boost in the double game week, so I'm expecting, and I'm not going to wildcard, so I'm expecting a bit of a slight dip. So if I can maintain a slight grey arrow even, if that's possible, I'll be. That's why I'm looking at game week 26. So I'll be looking very enviously at your wildcard. I'm not going to do it myself though. Just yet. David, let's move on to your side. So you did have 48 points. You had McCarthy in goal, Maguire, Cancelo, Dallas, Sterling, Fernandez, Gundogan, Salah, Calvert-Lewin, Bamford captain, and Watkins. But obviously, you've done better at the moment. So do you know what you're on at the moment? Because you've got your Bamford captaincy points and Dallas with a great haul.
Yeah, I've had just a quick look on Live FPL. My official total is 77, but I took a hit, so I'm on 73. And thankfully, it's a green arrow, not a huge one, so I'm up to 350k. But, it's been a bit of a stagnation the last 4 or 5 weeks, but I've still got all my chips left, so I'm kind of hoping that I can look at that rank as a couple of games in hand, like Villa have been looking at the Premier League table. of course, still got to win those games in hand, so lots of work to do. But yeah, it's really annoying because obviously I sat here a week ago and I said, you know what, I'm considering starting Pope over McCarthy. And I got some strange looks on the show. I got some strange comments in the comment section. I said exactly the same on the FPL show as well. And people were like, what are you doing that for? And I really believed in it until I got right down to making my final decisions. And it's still my fault. I'm not blaming anyone else, but I kind of caved on the whole double game week fever. And look what happened. Pope still outscored McCarthy 8 points to 3. So that's a bit annoying. I also sold Antonio as well. I didn't fancy him to play. I fancied him to get something, annoyingly, if he was going to play, but I didn't fancy him to play.
Yeah.
I obviously looked at next week thinking I want to try and bulk up as many double game week players as possible. And so before the whole Grealish news broke, I signed Watkins. I probably wouldn't have signed him after that news. So that was annoying. I don't really feel like I went early on that. But I mean, hey, it's it still is what it is. And at the very least, Antonio's going to play Man City this week. Watkins still has 2 matches. Yeah. So actually, in terms of over the 2 game weeks, I don't regret that too much. It's just, I've cost myself 13 points by that move because I took a hit.
I mean, I got rid of Antonio as well, but I would have benched him this week and I probably would have gotten rid of him this week. So,
yeah,
in effect, I've got nothing anyway from him.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted a Brighton defender. I don't know why I wanted that. I mean, obviously, they've done very well recently. 5 clean sheets and 6 before the Palace game, and they really, really should have kept a clean sheet. 2 touches in the penalty box of Palace on Monday night.
2 goals.
Both of them goals. That isn't going to happen every week. So.
I think it was the last time at Selhurst Park, wasn't it? The 1 shot on goal, one goal. It was Zaha.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And they've outdone themselves this time with 2 touches in the penalty box, 2 goals. What are they going to do next?
Final, isn't it? So
score, I don't know, from no shots somehow.
You never know. It may happen. I mean, Lewis Dunk loves an own goal, doesn't he? So
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, so just to explain the decision, because people are probably looking at it and saying, well, he signed a Brighton defender, he's on the bench. The reason he was there was because I actually was expecting Cancelo not to play. I just was completely, utterly shocked that he played at all in that game, because I felt that City could probably get through it without him. And obviously, of course, Gundogan was flagged, and I was no way I expected Gundogan to play. And with Antonio as well, I felt relatively comfortable taking a hit to improve my bench based on the fact that I felt this week more than ever I probably would need my first sub. Now, in the end, Burn got 0. But, he was 2 penalty touches in 2 penalty box touches away from a clean sheet. So it's not the end of the world. And I don't really mind bench boosting him in a double game week when he plays West Brom. So, could have gone better. Obviously, Bamford captaincy. Most of us have been going through that pain of the first game. I'm one of these people that's been watching on a little bit like a Bond villain, or even just like a cartoon villain at Rafinha, because obviously last week I talked about the fact that I probably can't get him.
The man with the golden man bun.
Yeah. Or the man with no shirt.
He's the only Leeds player without a man bun. Actually.
Yeah. I obviously didn't go with Rafinha because, again, I had to look at my team over the 2 weeks, and I felt if I sign Rafinha now, I'm limiting my ability to name a full 5 midfielders that play twice in the double game week. So I felt so lucky. I mean, I've just written up the article on the game, and I wrote the article on Friday night as well. And basically, for both articles in my little Rafinha section, it was just an absolute laundry list of how many times he could have got 20 points. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you've signed him captain Rafinha this week, you've got to feel so bitter about it, but fully justified, because he should have come out of this game with 30 points. It's absolutely ridiculous that he didn't. But I definitely got off lucky there, because I think my rank increase was about 4.5%. If Rafinha had done something or had got the points he probably was owed, I probably would have been looking at a red arrow.
Yeah, I'm looking at benching Rafinha game week 26, and this is exactly one of those moments that you were speaking about with Pope. It's like, am I favouring a double game week player unnecessarily over a single game week player? And Rafinha looks so good, and he can haul at any match. So that's a decision to come to as well. I'm looking at your bench there. I'm quite envious there, because my bench is absolutely appalling. I'm Jed Steer deep. Mitchell. I might actually play Mitchell in my 11, but anyway, it's pretty poor. Karam's not playing his bench boost, but he's playing his wildcard. So we're going to move on to game week 26 in earnest, really. So the whole of this Scoutcast can be really dedicated to that. We will look at the next 4 fixtures now, firm transfer and captaincy plans a little later. But we've got some community questions around a double game week 26, and got some stats as well. Some of them I put up in the captaincy video. Do have a look at that. So that's the sort of the little brother to the big brother of the Scoutcast videos for today and tomorrow. And plenty more videos and podcasts to come during the week as well to get all the latest news. So let's put your draft up, Karam. So as I said, a couple of weeks ago, Seb wildcarded, and it proved a useful way to discuss our plans for a double game week. So yeah, let's put your team up there, and I'll let you go through it really. So I don't know how you want to do it. Up to you really. Go from the back up to the front, or decisions around certain teams. Leave it entirely up to you. So I'll put your team up here, and if you want to tell people who's in it as you go, or leave it to you.
All right. So. Yeah, we'll kind of probably start line by line, just to have give the benefit to everybody who is looking to transfer in any player from any different position. Finally, I have no expensive bench anymore. So the draft I put in here, I think this is from Monday, I believe. So it hasn't changed a bit, but we can still discuss the teams and the players. So in goal, I think I will keep Martinez. I sold Pop. He did his part. I came back to Forster. It could be also the Fulham goalkeeper Fabry if I am desperate for 0.1 as well. And I think the reason for Martinez, as he is a save points machine, I think he is still one of the best goalkeepers arguably in FPL this season. And he plays in 29, so that's something I'm keeping in mind, because I'm still not quite settled on whether I will free hit in 29 or I will wildcard in here with some players on the bench that they play on in 29 and use free transfers to build towards that. I don't have to get a full team, I think. Martinez, he plays in 29. He has a double, and potentially maybe a double somewhere in 28, I think, if Villa Everton gets rearranged in that game week. So there is a potential to have more games as well than any other goalkeeper. And I think he is, we all know what is he capable of. And if he's also so strong with the bonus points as well, should they keep a clean sheet. However, I'm a bit concerned about the length of Grealish injury and how would that affect them offensively and defensively, what approach they are going to have. So there are a few options as well. If you look for a cheap goalkeeper, I think Areola, probably I mentioned him for the third time in the last 5 appearances on my Scoutcast, but he certainly, I think he's 4.5 still, or 4.6, but he's so cheap as well with a good double game week. Yeah, and watch the captaincy video with you and David early today. Areola is a very good goalkeeper in terms of the expected goals conceded prevented, and Fulham has been really good the last few weeks. So let's start with you, Joe. If you are on a wild card, or if you are going to recruit a goalkeeper, which ones are you going for?
Well, it depends. If I was wild carding now, obviously you can't play another chip, so you can't bench boost. So you're looking at that single goalkeeper. So you've gone for Forster there. So you just go for a dead one, a dead rubber goalkeeper there. And with Martinez, I think he's great for the double game week because of the save points as well. So let's assume the worst case happens. Villa concede. They concede both matches. So they concede a goal, even 2 goals. But if they're facing a team that can score 1 or 2 goals against them, chances are he's been getting so many save points as well. You'll be looking at least 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 extra points, and then you might even factor in bonus, even if he concedes. If he doesn't concede, if he gets at least a clean sheet, you're looking at bonus. You could possibly looking at saves as well. He's exactly the kind of FPL asset I like, because he's going to rack up points. If you're wildcarding this week, I think Martinez is great. I think Areola is great. You mentioned it on our captaincy video, David. What was it again? If you remind us again, David, why is Areola so good as a goalkeeper at the moment?
Yeah, so what Areola does is I mean, I actually learned this from you, Joe, that you always want to try and look for a goalkeeper that is a good goalkeeper, perhaps in a not necessarily bad, but certainly obliging.
Yes, it's the David James memorandum. That's what
Absolutely.
I call it.
Yeah. We saw it with Henderson last year, for example.
Yeah.
Pope has basically made a fantasy living off this. A team that will allow shots quite a lot of the time, often limit them to the edge of the box to the point that the goalkeeper can make lots of saves. What it tends to end up creating a scenario of is if the goalkeeper is especially good, which is the case with Areola, the expected goals rating for each shot that he saves gets added up into a stat called expected goals prevented. And the top 2 goalkeepers for that statistic this season, so the 2 most influential goalkeepers over their team's ability to keep a clean sheet, Pope is number 1, Areola is number 2. So it means that they're making big saves in games where they concede lots of shots, and that usually ends up in a big haul because the saves and the clean sheet and the bonus all kind of dovetail into one really. So yeah, Areola, big potential for him, I think.
Now the other benefit as well is just purely strategic, because when you look at game week 29, if you don't have a free hit or don't plan to use your free hit chip game week 29, Fulham are one of very few teams that actually play. Fulham, Leeds, Brighton, Newcastle, West Ham, Arsenal, Villa and Spurs. And out of all of those, it's Martinez, Areola and Lloris are the goalkeepers to target in terms of they play then and they have a double in game week 26. So, Karam, you're very wise, I think, to get Martinez. But I think if you had Areola there and you need to find that extra money, I think that would be a good one to go for. Do you want to move on to your defenders? Because here we're thinking not just clean sheets, we're thinking a bit of attack, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, so I'm started to lean towards moving away from the triple city defense. And the reason with that, I actually tested how they impact me or how they gain what they gain me from the clean sheet. And funny enough, I didn't actually gain anything by triple clean sheet because they didn't get bonus points. Even Cancelo got a yellow card, and then many managers still have Gundogan or a City attacker, and then it didn't really feel like there is a huge gain there. So I started to lean towards dumping some of them because with the Champions League coming in, there's absolutely no way to predict Pep from here until the next few game weeks. And so I think I will keep Diaz, that's for sure. I'm still undecided on I didn't commit the transfers, that's why you have the draft with a full team, but there is a possibility to keep Cancelo. But however, I'm leaning towards playing the double game week with Luka Dean of Everton. Ricardo Pereira is a sort of like a differential coming in here, although I still think after coming back from his injury, he might be still managed. But Leicester, I think the main reason that I'm wildcarding in general, that I'm wildcarding Leicester in, because with my position here with my position in terms of the rank, and the crucial spot of the season, I think I need a team that is sort of ignored, if that makes sense. And I think Leicester is not still highly on. Maybe they will after the next few days, but maybe if I can get ahead of the curve a little bit. Ricardo Pereira, when he came back against Villa, he had 3 shots on target, playing as an out of position right wing. I don't think that would continue, but it was just enough to get a temptation there. And I think the rest I will deal with some cheap benches. So Byrne of Brighton, I'm not sure whether he will keep his place or not, but he is at least for now, and he plays at 29. And so comments in the chat talking about Maitland-Niles, what he's doing here, and I thought I liked a bit of a Maitland-Niles as an out of position a defender who looked really threatening against Burnley. He had a couple of chances, he had a couple of shots as well, and at 4.6 I think it's doable. However, the only concern with it is he's not playing 29, but I can certainly use him in 27 when Digne plays, I think, Manchester United, that is, while Maitland-Niles is playing in Newcastle. So it sort of like gives me a rotational option. But certainly there are a few teams that are strong in the list. Like Spurs is strong in terms of the fixture. But did you actually do you David trust the Spurs defenders, or what do you think of the
I'm not sure
defensive options?
I trust their attack, let alone defenders.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yeah.
It's hard to really know. It's weird. I feel like Mourinho's time at Spurs is very much Mourinho's career path in a microcosm. In 18 months, he seems to have gone through the whole 3-year period, and we're now at the stage where we have scapegoats and the defensive problems are coming back in as well. I mean, he hasn't kept a consistent backline for a while. I was actually looking at this earlier because I was writing up the Scout Squad, which is just on site where we pick our best players for the game week. And obviously, you're talking long term, but I think it's still my problems with the Spurs defence, I think, are still evident in the double game week because their fixtures are nice, as you've mentioned there. Burnley and Fulham, 2 very low scoring sides. So you think clean sheet, you'd hope. But in terms of trying to pin down someone to like actually play, I mean, it's become a lottery again. Dyer has played 3 of the last 4. Alderweireld's played 3 of the last 5. Reguilon's back, but how quickly is he going to come back in? Aurier's got a calf problem. Doherty has played 2 sub appearances last 4. Ben Davis has played something like 6 of the last 7, but he's obviously missed the last one. So what's the deal there? Sanchez has started 3 of the last 6. So there's just no consistency in that back line other than, I suppose, Lloris, a 5-6. He's going nowhere in terms of his place. And actually, in recent years, he has actually been quite good for saves because, I mean, he's on paper a good goalkeeper. He's got to make saves, and Spurs do concede a fair amount of shots. It's between him and Pope, really, if you want a goalkeeper, if you're going to pay 5.6. If you want to get some clean sheets, not loads, with the possibility of saves. Like, he's more likely to get them than the De Gea's and the Edersons and the Alissons. But do you want to spend 5.6 million on a Spurs goalkeeper? Probably not. No. So, yeah, the Spurs defence is a real tricky place to invest in. When you're wildcarding as well, you've got to be absolutely cast iron certain, haven't you, that defender, especially if you're going to pay a little bit extra for them to be a so-called top 6 side. I would say it's a no-fly zone at the moment. If a back 4 or back 5 or back 3 emerges in the next couple of weeks, then maybe. But you've got to make that decision now. So yeah, it would be something I'd probably avoid if I was on a wildcard.
I think you're right to get the likes of Luca Dean and Pereira and Diaz, obviously, because you can move on to other players from them. But also they do have that sort of differential points potential, especially Pereira. I've got a couple of things I can put up in terms of stats. So one, I'm going to put up I'll put up the fixture difficulty next. So this is what this shows is the teams. This is the fixtures for 26, but in terms of their difficulty according to Fantasy Football Scout season ticker at the moment. So this decrees that Tottenham have the most favourable fixtures, Burnley and Fulham. So that'd be the one, if only there was a nailed on option there. It does make me think that Lloris might be okay, but I do think Areola and Martinez just offer a bit more in terms of points potential. Everton, Southampton and West Brom. So there's clean sheet potential. Plus we know with Luca Dean, Calvert-Lewin's back. There's assist potential. Villa, this shows why you're right to get Martinez in. Leeds and Sheffield United. Then Crystal Palace have apparently the easiest fixture. I don't think Manchester United's quite that easy, but it's the Fulham game they're thinking about there. There was some quotes I gave on the captaincy video this morning, so do have a look at that on YouTube. That's from Gary Cahill, and there does seem to be a change in mentality in their team. They're sort of had enough of losing, so they are attempting to defend quite hard at the moment. So the focus is back on defence. That's why we saw Mitchell there. I'm actually going to field Mitchell, weirdly, in this double game week. I don't have a tremendous amount of options because I'm not wildcarding or I haven't set up for a bench boost. But if he plays, I think he might get a clean sheet against Fulham. It's possible. West Brom defence have been quietly getting better. So Maitland-Niles is quite good. If they are going to get some form of attacking return, he might get it. He's more or less pretty out of position there. And then Leicester, Arsenal, Burnley. Not so much Burnley, but Arsenal and Leicester games historically have been really good. A lot of goals. I don't know whether that's going to happen with Arteta as much. But yeah, I like the idea of Pereira once again out of position. He's playing quite high up on the wing.
It's quite interesting. You mentioned the Leicester Arsenal game because it used to be a fist of goals in the last few years up until 2018, actually. But it seems like, since I didn't check whether it's just the time where Brendan Rodgers took over Leicester, it has been actually very low scoring games, and Leicester have kept three clean sheets in the last 4 matches in the league. So it feels like an Arsenal, Arteta's Arsenal in the big games, they used to be cagey and don't open for a lot of space. So I can see it as well as a sort of a 0-0 or 1-0, which 1-0 game, which actually doesn't really correspond to my decision to have a double attack, but at least it might justify having a Leicester defender. So that's something I just like to add on the Leicester Arsenal.
I was going to put up just this other slide here of big chances conceded, and this brings on to your team, because I noticed you have one Manchester City defender in.
Yeah.
I've currently got 2, and I wish I had more. I think I've got about 4 or 5 in the Sky game, which you can. There's no limit on the team. Just get as many as you can. But the reason is I've got big chances conceded. I've got to say, this was prior to the Monday and Tuesday games this week, but this is last 4 matches played, so they're broadly the same. And in terms of big chances conceded, the absolute best defence is Man City's. They've had 2 big chances conceded. They've conceded just 2 goals, and the expected goals conceded very, very low, well under 3.
It's the same in the last 6 game weeks as well. If you extend that.
So if we go back to your wild card, are you tempted to, because you could get Stones in, you can quite easily, you could get Cancelo in even. There is the option of Edison as well, who has these are double game week sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the last 4 matches, and even if you extend to the last 6 matches, they have conceded only 2 big chances conceded. And there was a ridiculous stat I saw on Twitter that they allowed only 4 shots on target by facing Liverpool, Spurs, and the recent sides they have faced, which is absolutely mental. And as I said like a few minutes ago, the triple City defense didn't give me a gain in the rank, which means if I dump 2, I will actually be on a red arrow probably from that clean sheet. The question would be, okay, if I want to double up, which I'm very keen on it, I can easily return one of Pereira. Probably Pereira would be return it back to one of the City defense. Then the question, which one? Because with the Champions League coming in now, Laporte is fit, Walker is fit, Zinchenko is fit. So can I give these clean sheet points elsewhere without having the risk that the player might be benched? Actually,
I mean, we're talking rotation. Well, you could get 2 Man City defenders in, and I get the point. You could basically end up with 1. David, looking at Karam's defence here, I mean, I guess if you were wild carding, would you have broadly similar, or are there any other players that you think people should be considering?
Yeah, I think looking at Leicester is definitely worth doing when you look at the season ticker for the rest of the season. So, I mean, apologies, people can't see how I've sorted it just now, but I've basically just extended it all the way to the end of the campaign, which obviously includes a double game week. They've got some really nice home games. Arsenal, Sheffield United, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Newcastle are some of the home games, and everything's grouped together really nicely. They obviously don't play in 29, but building a full 11 in that week without a free hit chip is going to be hard anyway. So I don't really think that's going to put people off. Brighton, they play away. So basically, they get Arsenal, Brighton, Sheffield United with the double with Burnley as well. Then Man City obviously is a tricky one, but then you get West Ham, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Southampton, Newcastle, all in a nice block before Man United, Chelsea, Spurs for the last 3 games. So then you can probably just switch in maybe for a Liverpool defender, to be honest, because their last 3 of the season are really nice. Which does actually bring me on to Liverpool. Their defensive run slowly improves for the rest of the season, and you'd like to think that maybe that might dovetail with them sorting out their problems at Kabak, you could say, because they haven't really gelled with the new guy just yet. But there's no reason why he can't. I don't think. I think they can keep a clean sheet against Sheffield United. Then they've got Fulham in 27. Wolves aren't typically high scoring; they face them in 28. Depending how bad this Grealish injury is, they play Villa in 31. And then they've got, for the last 6 game weeks of the season, Newcastle at home, Man United away, which to be honest, that'll be a 0-0, knowing how those two teams play each other in the league most recently. Southampton at home, West Brom away, Burnley away, Crystal Palace at home. So they finished the season really strong. And actually, in the last 4 matches, a rather familiar face has been slowly creeping up the charts. In the last 4 matches, Trent Alexander-Arnold is 3rd highest for chances created, behind only Tierney and Luke Shaw is just a ridiculous machine of a defender right now. I mean,
Luke Shaw, is this right? Now, I've got this from Fantasy
Yeah.
He's had 15 chances created, which is almost double Alexander-Arnold, Aaron Cresswell, 3 times as many as the great Loughton of Burnley.
He's looking good. I mean, United's fixtures are not as nice as Liverpool's, but of course, the saving you can make there. I mean, he's shown in the most recent games that actually you can take him into a game that they're going to concede and he probably still get an assist. And then if there's a chance they're going to keep a clean sheet, which they can do, there's a double figure haul right there. So he's worth thinking about too. But I'd love to make sure that people just keep an eye on the fact that Trent Alexander-Arnold, I don't know, maybe for the last 12 games of the season, comes back into the frame and just completely messes everything up because he's so flipping expensive that in order to actually have him, you're going to have to break the shape of your team. So he's a good wildcard option.
Remember it was about 2 months ago. It was a Scoutcast, and was it when I was talking to Andy in a particular video? But it was one of the videos, and we were looking at Luke Shaw's emerging stats. And it was slowly getting more and more interesting, and then he was starting to get talked about a bit more, and then those chances created started turning into assists, and now he's actually delivering, so he's getting those underlying stats, and that's possibly what we're going to start seeing with Alexander-Arnold. Now, a lot of people go, right, Liverpool's form, and I think the assumption is they're suddenly going to turn into Lincoln City. But they're not. They're Liverpool, and they, like Man City, like Manchester United, these are good sides, and they have runs of bad form, and they have runs of very good form. And you definitely want to be on their runs of good form. So I think at the moment, if I was wildcarding, I would probably try and get Luke Shaw in, because I think there's a chance of points at both ends of the pitch, very strong chance there. I'd want Luke Shaw, Pereira, possibly double City defence, a Brighton defender, because of I wouldn't be bench boosting, and it would be for Gameweek 29 in mind. And I think it was Luca Dean would be the one that miss out for me. But that's just me. Before we move on to midfield, Karam, have you sort of had any second thoughts about your defence?
Well, I think the double City defence is still quite a strong option. From myself, I think it comes down to how much I want to take a risk on Pereira himself. I might just go really boring to Soyuncu or Evans, or Castagna. Could be another option. So I like to invest in Leicester, but I'm still not 100% sure on Pereira himself, just because of how his minutes could be managed. Really Leon could be. I know we don't trust the Spurs defense, but if you look for something different, maybe he could be an option. We've seen before his injury, he was so attacking, and he's part of the attacking side of Spurs, and him missing the last period of time probably contributed a bit to where they are now. But I think the focus would be more on the attack, which we will come into in a few minutes, talking about Son and Kane as well.
Well, let's have a look at the midfield, because I mean this is starting to be the players that we're thinking about captaining, and other people who maybe have a triple captaincy might start considering some of these players. So for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, if you could go through your 5 midfielders and some of the reasons why you picked them.
Yeah. So finally, I'm getting Mr. Ilkay Gundogan in my draft. I have watched the Arsenal game, and it was not fun the last 30 minutes. You can correct me if you watched the game, but I noticed that Gundogan was not that much involved when KDB was back and taking his duties. But when KDB was substituted, I thought, oh, this is gonna be one of the hardest 30 minutes I'm gonna follow, because I don't have Gundogan, and he was heavily involved. He could have a couple of chances. And he even said in the press conference ahead of the Champions League game that he likes the new role. He's been more involved in it, and it's kind of a tactical adjustments that allowed him to play more in that role, getting more to the box. and I don't see any problem why this wouldn't continue. So I think if don't change a winning team is the theoretical formula, and I think what we are doing now, especially with Grundle being more involved as an extra player in the box, I think he will still have a ridiculous value. Talking about the penalties, until today, Pep claimed that he doesn't know who's going to take the penalty. So I'm interested to see maybe if we get a penalty in the Champions League, that would help a lot. Because
Ederson.
Give me Ederson. I want Ederson. Please.
If I get Ederson's penalty goal, I've won FPL
you win,
in my head.
You win FPL, yeah.
Retire. That's it.
I think one of the biggest Man City fans is to give the penalty to Ederson because we are done with missing penalties. Anyway, so I think Gundogan is here. And, now, honestly, I love Kevin De Bruyne, and I wouldn't have any hesitation to recruit him just for the fun of loving him and having him in my FPL team. But I still don't know if he's ready enough to play the double game week, at least 2 starts or so. So yeah, it really depends on what's happening in the Champions League game. But I think that the attack is certainly an option. The 2 home games in 26 are very strong for them. Fernandez is he stays there. He gets the points.
Yeah.
Copy paste. Yeah, don't mess up with him.
Even owning him isn't good enough. You've got to captain him every week.
Absolutely. Now the issue for me here is Son, because I've watched the captaincy video earlier today, and I was quite shocked by the numbers that that was mentioned in terms of his involvement in the last few game weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm honest to say, if I am on a free hit, I will probably not have both Kane and Son for the double game week, because I still think that there are a few options. But I feel I am losing and I'm out of control, or I'm forced to have both because I'm still thinking about not free hitting in 29. So it's like I'm recruiting them for the double game week and hope for the best, carry them over the next period until 29 and then reassess. But Son I've been quiet, right? And I'm not sure really against 2 teams which looked on the paper strong double game week for them, but they kind of frustrate, and we've seen they are not whipping boys. They are very well organized teams they are playing. So I don't know. I think I need a cover from Spurs at there. That's 100%. But do I need both?
Now, I mean, the one, my first question is, where's Salah? And does it matter?
I'm done with him.
That was my question.
Yeah. Well, let's both agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salah has left the team, and I sort of committed to it because I have some value tied up with him, and I sold him just to give myself the impression that I might not get him back. I think at the 12.6 million, he's not doing what he's worth, and I don't see myself captaining him until game week 31. And I feel like this is a much better team overall. I don't rule out Salah to blank the double game week. He's been doing this for such a long time now, but I wouldn't also be surprised if he scores. He will be annoying if he scores, but I don't think that we will see a mega haul from him in a double game week.
What would be your now? Because Salah is 12.6, I believe, at the moment, and Fernandez you've got is 11 million, and that's your current price there. And then your next one down is Son at 9.5, who you said you want to keep for 29.
Yeah.
What's if Salah starts becoming Mo Salah again? You'll want to get him in, otherwise you might see your rank slipping a bit.
It's been a bit slipping all season.
Who makes way? Would it be who would make way in order to get Salah in?
I mean, what I was thinking was, could you not use Salah as a placeholder somehow? I mean, I know it's a big jump, for example, to get to, as in your current squad, to go from Son to Salah. But if your point about planning for game week 29, could you not use Salah or maybe even De Bruyne as your placeholder for Son, so that then because I completely get that you feel much more comfortable planning for that, but at the same time, when you get to game week 29, actually Salah to Son would be easy because it's a blank game week. A guy not playing to a guy who's got a nice fixture. So I don't know. I mean, is that maybe a way to go? That's what I was thinking. Perhaps would be my suggestion, I suppose.
I do think it's a way to go. I think that the difference in this wildcard team is actually going big at attack. When we come to it, I have 2 premiums up there, and I fancy both of them. We'll talk about when we come to the forward line, but that would come at a cost, and that cost was Salah for me. I still think that the fixtures for Vardy and Kane are I will always deal with the paper more what is the current form, because they are still good players and they can return in any minute. But I think the opportunity for Vardy is high enough. Okay. And the 2.5 million difference would have allowed me to go much bigger in at the back, for example, going from 4.5 to a Gundogan, for example. So that's sort of a difference that makes for me.
I'll put some of the stats we put up on the Captaincy video as well. These expected goal involvement last 4, which highlights about issues like around Salah and I think David's point about, which is essentially it's easier to get rid of him than get him in. If you just start with Salah and then move away. And I think
I always, whenever I have a wild card around a time when there's a question of it, I always keep him in. And just one other thing, the question being raised about what can you do in double game week. Away from home this season, he's got 10 goals, which is the most of any FPL midfielder. This is Salah. Obviously, he plays away at Sheffield United, who have all 3 of their first choice centre backs all out. I think there's a big chance he goes big against Sheffield United. People have been a bit frustrated watching them when they play the home games, and they've scored 2 goals in their last 6 home games, which I think is joint worst in the Premier League, which is awful. But they're not having that same issue away from home. That they're finding a lot easier to actually get the goals when they're on the road, and Salah is top for that. So I think a double-figure haul in a double game week for Salah is not really outside the realms of possibility, because he's only got to get a goal and some bonus in the first game and play 60 minutes and not even keep a clean sheet just to tide you over that to maybe 10, 11 points. And then from that base you can move him out if you need to. I hate wildcarding and not having the most expensive player in the game if he's at not necessarily a crossroads, but certainly a point to prove moment, because he loves banging in those moments.
The stats I've got up on the screen are the expected goal involvement last 4 matches, and this underlines your Gundogan move there. He's had 5 big chances, and the best expected goal involvement of any of the players that we're looking at here, really, in terms of I guess captaincy options. But definitely for your wild cards, he's expected to be involved in well over 4 goals, and indeed scored 4 and assisted another. Bruno Fernandes there, 2 big chances and expected goal involvement well over 3. Scored 4 goals, so doing well. Created 11 chances, so broad spectrum of points, and we know that he's good with bonus. But next is Salah in terms of expected goal involvement. So he's only scored 2 goals because he's 12.6, but he really should have expected to be involved in at least 3 in around 3, but he's had 5 big chances, which is the same as Gundogan. So if Liverpool can improve, it's Salah, and as we've mentioned with Alexander-Arnold, and I would be minded to take, I say a risk, but I would go for the risk of getting them in and then running away from them. So it's that old wildcard thing I've talked about before. How can I run away from them? I don't think I can run to Salah, but I can definitely run away from him because he's so expensive. You can run away anywhere. Further down that list as well, you can see Son. He's at the bottom of the ones I'm looking at here in terms of captaincy or getting in on a wild card, and he's expected to be involved in not even a goal. He's had 1 big chance and he's scored 1 goal. So we know he's clinical, but he's going to have to be pretty clinical, and he's against 2 of the 2 statistically best goalkeepers. I think Kane, even though his underlying stats aren't so good, I think that the Burnley and remind me who else he's playing again. There's Burnley, the 2 fixtures, Burnley and Fulham games that he's got, I think are more Kane type games because he's got the penalties, he gets the bonus whenever he scores. So a goal in each game and bonus, 9 points in each, 18. I think that makes him a really good option, but I'm not sure Son does. So, what I'd probably do with your if I was wildcarding now, but I'm not you obviously, but I would look to not have Son, and I would have Salah instead. And then if I wanted Son in Game Week 29, I would look towards that, and because that's a very easy move to make, and you get 3 million back. But I don't know if I could get to Salah from Son. That would be quite hard. So, any food for thought there?
I feel like we're bullying him now.
I know.
We both decreed.
We both decree that you must have Salah. But going back to your wild card, you can see the dilemma here, because without Salah, your wild card's amazing because you've spread the budget around, and they're really good players, and it's a really good 11 that you've got for this week and going ahead for future weeks. So. Yeah, what do you go with? Balanced squad or Salah?
Probably, yeah. That's the challenge. And why are you convincing me? I'm just trying to draft right now a team with a Salah in,
spirit.
and
we're in his head now.
Yeah,
we got there.
Any plans? I blame you.
Get Salah.
Yeah, so
I mean, this basically is the plot to Inception 2.
Yeah.
Really, just to create the idea in his head, and then a couple of minutes later, I'm Leonardo DiCaprio, you're Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This is great.
I'm going around myself now. Yeah, I think there is a decent chance that I can build a team. That will be a 4-3-3 that includes Salah, Fernandes, and Gundogan only, with cheap 2 mids, and because the main idea, I'm leaning towards an expensive forward this next period of time. And it feels like I'm not feeling like I want to lose one of Vardy or Kane for the time being, and so it's certainly an option, but it will come at a cost that I would be inflexible with the formation, which is it's fine if I get the points, but
I'll just go back to those expected goal involvement stats again, because there's another player I want to mention, Harvey Barnes there. It's 6.9. He's just gone up in price since I've made. He's going up so fast. Since I put this picture up, he's gone up in price. But he is, in terms of expected goal involvement and indeed big chances, he's better than Son here. So if anyone's thinking Son or Harvey Barnes, it's Harvey Barnes. I think he has better fixtures, and I wouldn't be too clouded by that Game Week 29 fixture, because you've got all the fixtures 26, 27, 28 before that, and these are good fixtures for Leicester. He's a good long-term move, good medium-term. I like him. He's my target. I have Jack Grealish, and I'm looking to make a very easy move away from Jack Grealish to Harvey Barnes. I think Harvey Barnes is my man for this week. But going back to your wildcard again, I think we have to talk about. We'll move on to your attackers, because this is the crux of it. Really, it was without Salah. With that broad spread, with Barnes, Son, Gundogan, Fernandes, all in midfield, and you've got good defence as well, and you can afford Martinez in goal. And this is where it really comes into its element here. So there's no messing around with Ryan Brewster or Sidibe from Stoke or whoever, other rubbish that we've had over the years. You've gone for Calvert-Lewin, Kane, and Vardy, who are 3 absolutely solid, cast iron, brilliant captaincy shouts this week. So yeah, I mean, why are they so good? Why have you essentially ripped up your team to create a team that enables these 3 really good strikers?
I think there is a feeling that where I am now, I have nothing to lose in terms of having a decent rank by the end of the season. Like my top target will be always a top 100k, maybe top 50k. If I am far away like now, like 700k or so, it wouldn't make a difference if I am 900k or 500k. And to try and like, how to say, take the last shot, probably one of the last shots, I would say. This is one of the biggest double game weeks we will ever see. So if I don't take a big advantage of it, maybe this is it, very much. Although it's almost 1/3 of the season, but the opportunities, how big are they? This is certainly one of them. And I don't think that anybody, or at least very few, would be tempted to draw a bigger attack. And they are rightly so, because we've seen the budget attackers are offering a decent value recently, and in the likes of Watkins and Bamford and DCL. But this time I feel like that those players are first our captaincy options, and my captain would be one of the three. We'll talk about it in the captaincy part at the end of the show. One of them, Kane, is playing in 29, and Calvert-Lewin has one of the best double game weeks from an attacking perspective. Vardy is owned, I think, by nearly an 18% or so. It's 18.9%, but I don't think he's so active in the engaged managers, at least in the top 1 million or so. So I feel that Vardy will be actually my own differential in a way. And the season ticker gives Leicester an outstanding run, even beyond the double game week, with the Brighton, Sheffield United, West Ham, West Brom, Crystal Palace, all the way until the end of the campaign. So, because I'm wildcarded now, and planning to a very like a mid-term or a long-term options, I think Vardy would be nice to sit and forget. You might mention at the end of the show, Joe, but I'll be away for the time being, and I don't want to have to watch Vardy busting the stats, like not having the ball. So I would like to come and check the score at the end of the game and see that Vardy has a score to brace. So yeah, I think Vardy is he has an expected goals of 1.9, which is like he's already in the table, but not very high up. But he doesn't need that. So if he doesn't need that to score. However, there's an issue with him that he did not score a lot from an opening play this season. I think it's only 3 or 4 goals and 8 penalties. So I don't know if I have to be concerned about this or not. But I think that Vardy is a differential, and I want to play a bigger attack just to look for something different. And I think they are good enough to do it. So.
David, what do you think of those 3 attackers there? Calvert-Lewin, Kane, and Vardy, and any others that you think he could be considered?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really like Calvert-Lewin. We talked on the captain video about how I think he can be one of the best captaincy candidates this week when we look at Southampton and West Brom's defence over the most recent weeks, and what he can offer in terms of breaking those down. For me, again, I don't want to sound like I'm bullying Karam, but Barnes and Vardy for me is possibly, I would be a little bit uncomfortable with that much Leicester. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of abuse from Leicester fans now, but Vardy, it's been a long time since I could really justify owning him for some of the reasons you mentioned there. In that I feel like Barnes offers a much higher ceiling, bearing in mind he's a midfielder, and much greater threat from open play. And of course the price as well is fantastic. So to be honest, banging on the Salah drum again, to be honest, I'd probably downgrade Vardy to someone like, it's tricky because you'd love to have a Watkins right now, right? But with Grealish out, it's a bit of an issue. To be honest, I mean, this is where I'm going to sound like a right crackpot, but then again, I did tip Minamino last week, so maybe I'm a mad scientist. Last 4 matches, minutes per expected goal involvement in the Premier League, Umbe Diagne, I still have no idea how to say his name, but the West Brom striker.
The West Brom guy.
He's I'm going to call him Luca Dean's cousin because he's 1 letter away from having the same surname. He's 4th best for minutes per expected goal involvement, and we've been talking about West Brom's fixtures aren't like awful, and especially in the short term, and he's getting returns, and he's asking questions, and he's got blue hair, so even better. I might even downgrade Vardy to him so that I can have Salah upgraded from Son. And then that's not to say that Vardy is, or that Diagne is a better option than Vardy, but it's all about spreading that money and thinking about structure of a team kind of moving forward. I think in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to start talking about Diagne in the same sort of conversation as an Antonio or a Calvert-Lewin.
Well, I mean, I was just having a look at Diagne's ownership. He's in 0.5% teams. So he's a really great differential with a double. I could see the temptation there. Him instead of Vardy, but then upgrade Son to Salah. But yeah, that's
3 attacking returns in the last 5. So he is converting them with a decent sort of, he's only just turned up and he's already got the nous of converting decent expected data into actually ticking over.
That is vintage Scoutcast
He's
wild
a magic
card,
bean right there.
wild card
Yeah.
banter. There is to say, don't bother with Jamie Vardy, the multiple golden boot winning, Premier League winning guy. Just go for the guy that we can't even pronounce from West Brom.
Well, I mean, I could have always suggested Jean-Philippe Mateta, because that's a wonderful phrase and it means no worries. So we could even look at him.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let's bang the Vardy drum here. So I've got some stats here is team attack. So this is the last four matches I put here. I've just put these in this morning. I can't remember whether I put them in your notes or not, so you might be looking at this blind. But it's expected goals, shots on target, and goals themselves over the last 4 weeks. And what that shows with Leicester is they've had 21 shots on target, which is exactly the same as City. And we're talking about the Man City attack and how that's gelling and they've got multiple goals. But Leicester are on a par with that. So that's the sort of form they're in. They've scored 7 goals. They're expected to score well over 5 over the last 4 matches. I think it could be a shrewd investment to go for Vardy and Barnes. But I do think it's Barnes. I do agree with David. And that's why my top target at the moment is Harvey Barnes, which is... I never thought something I'd ever say, but that is true, and I think he is more than Vardy is. So I think if someone's thinking of thinking of which one, I think I would go for Harvey Barnes, but adding Vardy into that as well. I think you can do well. 21 shots on target, that's really good over the last 4 matches, and I get the impression they're getting better. And they have good, I think, reasonable fixtures. The Arsenal one especially. Yeah, I don't think you're going to go wrong.
I think it's one of those. Yeah, So I mean, I don't think it's like a bad move. I guess it comes down to personal style. You know, for me, I don't like to. I don't like to double up too quickly on an attack, but at the same time, I'm looking at. I feel like I have to take fewer risks, maybe, because he was sort of saying that, you know, you're at this point now where you have to tilt very much in a certain direction to make up some ground. Now, I mean, I'm not exactly having a great season either, so don't take that as, you know, I'm doing way better. I'm 350k, so I've still got some risks I'm going to have to take at some point. In terms of, so for example, like I don't want to go with that Salah because basically I'm a dullard and I like to think about team structure. It's not the worst idea in the world to put a bigger bet on something you feel confident about, because as Joe said there, like the Leicester's attack has been doing it. It's just how confident are you prepared to be on that bet coming off? It's a bit like swords and shield, I suppose. You know, if you go in with one attacker, then maybe that just buffers against other people on that. If you put all your eggs in one basket, then you've got a higher ceiling of it maybe coming off and it making up that lost ground, because for every goal that goes in, it is actually a big green arrow for you because you've got the goal and the assist rather than just the goal or the assist.
Okay, what we're going to do is we'll sort of round off the wildcard and stroke a double game week 26 best options chat with some community questions. Pep Talk, how are you balancing the temptation to replace good single game week players with those with a double in 26 and also possibly in 27 and 28 as well? Also, for those without a free hit or wildcard, how do we cope with blank game week 29? So we can see here how you're doing that, because you're having a little bit of Brighton there, and you've also got Villa and Spurs you're thinking of, but they also have a double. But you've got Smith Rowe in there now. Arsenal playing 29. So presumably that's your answer, Karam, would be fill your bench up with some of those 29 assets that can return.
I must say that I noticed that Smith Rowe spot is not nailed on anymore with the Odegaard playing and they have Europe, but it certainly goes along with when I have cheaper players where possible who I can bench with a fixture in 29. And certainly Arsenal are one of those teams that I might get because they have a lot of cheap assets. So if somehow I ended up, which I doubt, but if I ended up having a 5.3 or 5.2 where I can afford Saka, for example, I just got Saka and put him on the bench, is even a good option to claim in some game weeks building towards the 29. And yeah, so it really depends. Just back to which question that specify that, but yeah,
It's
so
pep talk. Basically talking
yeah,
about single
the
game week
pep
options.
talking
Yeah,
one. Yeah, so
for
one of
29
them
mind.
for the 29, after the big result of Leeds, they are now in and I'm concerned about them because I have Rafinha, which I'm pretty set on selling him on a wild card, but it's still the element that, okay, where is Bamford again? He can outscore many of the double game week players, but again, we're talking about double game week attackers with good double game week fixtures. So where should I put Bamford? So if I have a Bamford exit plan, I have to have a point for more in the bank to recruit him back, going ahead to 29, which is, it's not an easy deal because all free hitters, or the ones who don't have a free hit, would certainly have at least 2, if not 3 Leeds players. So I have to be careful with that. So if you want to get to a double game week player, I think it's a good idea, although I'm not applying it exactly myself, but I might also do, is to keep those players. Bamford ownership is so high. He's putting out points and numbers, and I think it's worth having him, holding him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, David, what do you think? Sort of single game week options, but with 29 in mind as well. David. Oh, is he frozen? I think he's frozen on the screen. So
he's frozen.
hopefully,
that to me absolutely how important it is sometimes to am I
yeah, you're back on now.
Oh great, cool. Sorry, bit of an unstable connection. Apologies for that. I was just saying that the way that I planned for game week 25 to me absolutely shows that single game week players can sometimes do better than the double game week ones. Like I should have backed myself what I said last week. I didn't feel McCarthy was in the kind of form to actually warrant starting ahead of Pope. I was right. So I'm very much open to the idea of holding single game week players if you think that they are worth having. Leeds are absolutely ones to think about that. I mean, at the moment, I'm contemplating what to do with my bench boost. And in an ideal world, I'd love to maybe upgrade a Dallas to I've got 1 million in the bank and get myself invested in a Spurs defender or whatever. Like, just for the sake of having 2 games, but actually a home game against Villa without Jack Grealish for Bamford and Dallas, hold them. And I signed Dan Burn last week in the view that I was actually quite happy to bench boost him against West Brom. So there's definitely people to think about there. In terms of planning for game week 29, I mean, I've got a wild card and a free hit left, and I deliberately didn't use them over the double game weeks that we've had recently in the rank game weeks, because I felt that this game was going to prove a problem. Obviously, that means nothing to someone who's used them already, but in terms of planning for it, I guess my advice would be, and this is only an opinion based on it not being what I'm doing, the season ticker is really helpful here in the members area, because if you go in and you program it basically to give you a lead up to game week 29, you can basically get an idea of who's got good fixtures as well as having a fixture in game week 29. So you can kind of rank which of those game week 29 teams are more worthy of your investment. So for everything that we've said about Spurs, they are actually quite high, because in the next 4 matches, they've got a double. They play Palace at home. Away at Arsenal, I mean, even if Kane's not having, a particularly good run of form, he loves scoring against them. And then, of course, they play Villa. Villa are also high as well. Of course, they're missing Jack Grealish, but the fixtures are still nice. Leeds, Sheffield United, Wolves, Newcastle, and then, of course, they play Spurs. Here's a team we've not talked about, and for good reason, Newcastle, who have a lot of blue in the next 4 weeks. Now, they are a single game week team. They're playing Wolves, then they play West Brom, then they play Villa, then they play Brighton. It's not immediately obvious anyone who's worth having from that team, but the season ticker is really helpful here, because if you're basically giving yourself a metric by which to prioritise which players you need to be pulling in, especially if you've really got to focus on game week 29. So set it to game week 29 with the other game weeks in there as well, and work from that really.
Yeah, I mean, possibly not for 26, but this may be a future Scoutcast. A player like St. Maximum is someone I would be thinking about, because I'm in a position where I'm going to be wildcarding, and a few people are doing this around the game week 30-31 mark. So essentially I'm going to be dead ending my team into 29. So it's going to be full of a lot of dross. But I think St. Maximum, if you're going to get dross with a bit of gloss. I think he's the one to get. So yeah, I agree there. Leeds players. I've got the problem this week. I've got Dallas, Rafinha, and Bamford. So I'm going to play one of them. I think I'm going to bench Dallas, but which of Rafinha and Bamford would I bench? And that's tricky. They are so good at the moment. They pretty much doubled most of our scores, or at least got a good third of our scores for the whole week. Just one team there. NZ FPL asked about Kane and Son. I think we've pretty much covered our attitude about Son and Kane there. Kane, a great captaincy option. We'll talk about him in a bit when we talk about our captaincy. I'll answer this one from Jules. It says Grealish might not play, but who is the best replacement? And that's big. I mean, I am a Grealish owner, and I actually think the best replacement, if you don't have him, is Harvey Barnes, and you can save yourself $1 million. If you can afford to go up, there are other options. Perhaps I suppose Maddison really, and I guess I'm assuming you probably got Fernandes, but Son's not really on my radar for that. But he is an option if you want to go much further. But Gundogan, if for some reason you haven't got him, good one to get him. Mish asks, KDB, he's back, or is he? A great differential for double game at 26, or should we wait a bit longer? So Karam, I'll go ask you this because you love Kevin De Bruyne, and who wouldn't, especially a City fan. But you're not going to go with him. But are you okay with that? Are you at peace with that decision?
Oh, it's a tricky one. I certainly think that KDB so far hasn't offered the value of an 11.5 million asset. He's been offering something like a 9 million or 8 million a player, looking at the returns he's got so far. But he always looked so good. He always had the opportunities to pull out more goals as well during the season before his injury, playing in many occasions as a false 9 or a second striker in a 4-4-2 when they defend. He looked in a very dangerous positions, and we know what he's capable of. He likes the assists way more than the goals, so you would expect more assists than goals, and it's a question whether you want that from an 11.5 million where you can get the Kane or the Vardy's, those premiums. You like to get goals from them. If the penalties come back to him, which I have no idea, I can't assume whatsoever at this moment in time, but he would be interesting again, and I think he's a decent. He would be one of those differential players that we know what he's capable of, and so you would have to take a risk by losing one of the Son maybe, or dare I say maybe Salah if I ended up there. But if I come back to Salah, he's, as you said, is a good switch to KDB at some point if I need to.
Okay.
So I keep myself like those 11-12 million to swap Salah to KDB. I think the difference this season is actually Gundogan, because even if KDB is doing what KDB does best in terms of FPL, I still think that Gundogan will not be far away behind him with a half of his price. So it's kind of like putting a huge barrier to get KDB while you can have Gundogan for half his price. But if you like KDB like I do, I might just get him. I think the fixtures are strong, and I think City will not. I don't think they will pay attention elsewhere to the Champions League rather than the Premier League, not in the short period of time, because they want to keep winning. They want to drop the lead up as soon as possible. So I still think they will play the strongest team every game week until they officially get it. And I still think KDB that will be a big part of it. He will not, once he's in full fitness, I don't think he will be rotated, because he's so important, so good for the team and for Pep's tactics. So I would not be certain to get him ahead of the double game week. That's for sure. But maybe beyond that.
Okay, so
there will not be enough time. There will not be enough time after the 29 until the 29.
Which I guess brings us back to the Salah point. Another benefit of getting Salah in is you can run away from him to KDB, but going finding the money for KDB or indeed Salah without them. So that's definitely something to consider. Here's a question for you, David. It's from Chris Smith. We're saying instead of those like Son, Kane, and Salah, whose form has taken a bit of a dip, should we focus on those who are performing well, particularly midfield? And he references Harvey Barnes there, but he also mentions Mason Mount, who is a definite consideration, I think, for a wild card, and Richarlison as well. But yeah, what do you think, David, about some of those, I guess, less fashionable, but nevertheless very well high-performing players?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing to consider at this stage of the season. They're the kind of players that I need to be looking at to make up the ground in the weeks to come, because I do think there's a little bit of I guess, blinkers on type look at Son and Kane, just in my personal opinion. I think you can get possibly more value out of those other players. And Mount is a good one, actually, to be honest, because some of the other questions we're about to go through are to do with timing of chips.
Yeah.
And I do think that people who hold on to their wild card, which may well be me, I'm hoping it'll be me, hoping I don't get forced into it sooner than I want to, will notice that Chelsea are going to be a team that we're going to be looking at if you're going to be wildcarding around game week 30.
That's me.
Or even game week 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you, Joe. I'm not exactly certain where it's going to be. For me, it'll be between 27 and 30. But either way, Chelsea are right up there with teams to consider, because if you sort the season ticker by game weeks 30 to 38, for overall difficulty, they rank 4th. They've got home games against West Brom, Brighton, Fulham. They've got away games against Palace, West Ham. They've got some good fixtures in that particular run, and Mason Mount is really making a case for being in the team. Jorginho has been taking some penalties, not necessarily starting all the games, but Chelsea definitely on my radar. I think we've already talked about Barnes. I feel like Richarlison, it's hard to get excited about him compared to Calvert-Lewin, but Mount's someone we haven't really discussed yet. So keep an eye on them fixtures, because things are only going to get better, I think, for Chelsea. The more that Tuchel works with this team, I think the more they're going to realise.
Definitely. I mean, Seb, who of Scoutcast fame, Seb, who wildcarded a week or so ago, was asking about your wildcard, Karam, because about the timing of it. And I guess this is in mind with his wildcard and all those that who also wildcarded a couple of weeks ago. Will it be the same? Will essentially you be wildcarding into a similar team? Or what do you think, if you'd have wildcarded 2 weeks ago, but what do you think you've learned since a couple of weeks ago, that would makes your wildcard team different to someone like, say, Seb's?
I think there are two main reasons where I decided to wildcard. The first one is the fact that I have used my bench boost, so I had a relatively expensive bench, and in a double game week where there are a lot of options, a lot of premiums, a lot of expensive players you can or you want to afford and get, I thought it would be a great opportunity to use the wild card to free up the money from the bench. I also found myself, it's a funny story, because when I saw my bus team ahead of the double game week, I had actually 10 double game week players, but there are at least 4 of them that I don't want them, even if they have double game week. So I was in a position where I expected it didn't come as a surprise. It was always a plan to double game week into wildcard in 26, and I wanted to assess how I perform in terms of the points and the rank in the last 2, and I learned that the template is so strong that even if my template is strong, if my team is template, I don't really gain anything. So I think the main reason for the wild card is to look for something different, and I think this is the best time. This is the best game week where you can find opportunities there, because the likes of Vardy, Diane, those options, having Son, no Son, it can go either way. Salah or no Salah as well. So there is a big opportunity where you can make up really decent ground, or you just go the other way.
I was looking at, say, Seb's team at the moment, so I know he'll make changes, but one of the main differences is he's got lots of Leeds players, but obviously if you wildcarded a couple of weeks ago, you're going to have Leeds players for this double game week we just finished. So that's a key difference. But another one I notice is you've got triple Leicester, and his team doesn't. So I wonder if this is quite a good perhaps advice for those that have wildcarded a couple of weeks ago, and they're without Leicester. They perhaps hadn't seen enough of Leicester's attack, but now are convinced. Going for some Leicester assets might be the key difference to sort of catch up with you benefiting from that extra information. We had some other questions about the timing of cards. Militant and another post in Magic Zico asked about why not free hitting now. So yeah, I mean, David, I mean that for those that perhaps want to use their wildcard another time and don't want a bench boost, a free hit would actually be a really good move in this double game week. Surely just get the best players. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the free hit can. I think free hit can be a great chip in this week because it's whenever anyone plays it from this point in the season, I think it's going to have a big impact because it was used massively. I think was it game week 18 when we had about 6 games, just to give you some stats from the top 10k. There's hardly any of them got it left, to be honest. I mean, obviously that's not necessarily representative of the rest of us, but it certainly tells a story about plugged in managers. So after the game week 25 deadline, 80% of the top 10k had used their free hit chip, which means 20% of them have it left. I imagine there's probably a similar carryover from that to, I guess, the bracket we would consider ourselves in, not kind of regardless of rank in terms of what active players have left. And when we did a poll on site this week, it's still up and running. You can go and vote in it now. The results can change between now and the deadline. The free hit is comfortably the least considered chip. So I'll just run through the results of that now because I think people will find it interesting anyway. The poll results so far, we've got 29 people said they'd play the bench boost in double game week 26, which is actually lower than I expected. Sometimes it can be easy to think that the bench boost is like the talk of the town and everyone's doing it. Fantasy Football Scout voters, only 29% have selected that option. 27% have selected triple captain. So there's actually quite a lot of equilibrium between those two options. And 26% said they're going to play no chip. So whatever chip you play this week, you've got to expect a green arrow, to be honest. If a quarter of the voters in this aren't going to play a chip at all. 14% are on wildcards, which makes sense because we saw more attention for that last week. The bench boost being popular this week means wildcard wasn't popular last week. So then that brings us to the free hit. Just 2.6% of Fantasy Football Scout voters at this point in time are saying they're going to use their free hit chip. And I imagine that's just because not many of them have it left. And as you say, it gives you the opportunity to benefit from players who have a double right now who you maybe don't need beyond that. We've been talking about the problem of Leeds players. What do I do with them? Because they're so great and they've got a fixture in 29 and I don't want to bench them. Well, play the free hit if you have it and you don't have to worry about it at all. You can sell them.
Yeah.
I was talking about my bench just now. I've got Dallas and Bamford on my bench. I'd love to be able to turn those into two players who are going to play twice. Maybe the free hit's the way to do it. So I'm probably still going to use the free hit for either 29 or possibly we've still got to consider game weeks 32 and 33 where the FA Cup and the EFL Cup respectively will influence those fixtures. I always like to play my free hit in the second of the two FA Cup blanks because you've got a wider pool for players. It's probably why I'm going to look to use it, but I think it can have a massive impact in 26 very lucrative. And take away some of those hard decisions.
I mean, I've used my free hit chip already, but I used it in a blank game week that was in January. But I got well over 20 points more than I would have done if I'd have just had to use normal transfers, free transfer to go into that. So in essence, I think lots of us were in that same position who free hitted them because our existing teams would have done so awfully anyway. But I think we're okay there. But I think if I had my free hit chip left, I'd be very tempted for this double game week and just max out on the absolute creme de la creme of that 11. Just
the
make
pool
that
of players is big for free hits, I think, because look, I'm really glad I didn't use my free hit on blank game week 18 because it really fell flat on its face from what I can remember. It was a game week that most people got around 40-50 points, and you only made about 15 points on your non-free hit team. It's a bit like the bench boost. It's in that you need a large pool of players to increase the ceiling for that chip. And the free hit chip sometimes gets overlooked as an opportunity to capitalize on that wider pool. You know, you sometimes use it as almost like a wicket keeper to stop you from getting bailed out for having 2 players. But actually, if you sometimes dead end your team into a situation where you don't need the free hit for that week when there's only 4 fixtures, so that the game week where you've got smaller margin for error, if you can pull together a team that's going to basically have 20, 22, 20, 24 players really, because you're going to captain one of those players. That's much better. The ceiling for that is much better than free hitting a team that, you know, only got 4 games. You're going to have 3 Fulham players, or you're going to have 3 Newcastle players, or whatever. But I mean, it's hard because you're going to have to make the decision to go with it before that 29, and then looking back in hindsight, all you've got is hindsight. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone, you know, put together a free hit team just on paper for 26 and 29, looked back and looked at the size of their green arrow. I wouldn't be shocked if
Well, that brings us to Weeb Kakashi's question, which is, could a wild card in 30 or 31 potentially be lucrative, especially for those already stocked up on good double game week 26 assets? I think we've already sort of covered that really, because obviously you get extra information, but yeah, you do get these players like the Chelsea players. So I would be possibly looking at maybe Alonso, Mount, Werner. I mean, these types of players, and those wildcarding now, or in the previous week or so, you know, would have to use transfers to get to those. I think that's fairly easy. I mean, it's just a few players there. I noticed Wolves have really good fixtures from 30 onwards. They're not in anyone's radar at the moment, but Neto could be good. Perhaps one of the defenders could be good as well. Johnny could be firmly back and established. There could be strong options, but not at the moment. But maybe then. And the Circus Monkey, just finish off the questions. Is it worth bench boosting at a later date? If you take hits, is it worth bench boosting at a later date? So what he's talking about there is, and this is something I'm thinking about, because I'm not bench boosting this week. It would be pointless for me, because I think I would have to spend a -12 to get an effective bench boost, which just seems like the most stupid thing to do, is to just basically cancel my bench boost as soon as I've played it. But I don't know when I would bench boost again, and I've got to at some point. So David or Karam, for those of us bench boosting another time, when might we do it? Any ideas?
Wanna go ahead, David? I can.
Okay. You just don't know.
What I think. The way I think. I'm not sure how the season will fully look by the end of the season, but I think we will have very mini double game weeks. The blank game week of 33 will be arranged somewhere, and I think these are the opportunities, apart from just bench boosting in a single game week and on the cheap assets that have decent fixtures. But I think probably it's something like what I said. I bench boosted in a mini double game week with what was that, with the West Ham and Burnley assets, plus Danny Ainge. So it worked out. So there is an opportunity in the mini double game weeks. I don't expect to have a big double game week where you can have a bench boost after 26. I think this is the opportunity, and it's quite interesting. Coming back to the previous point you mentioned, that free hitting in 26 could be a massive opportunity, because what I did is it's just practically free hitting, but with the idea to have these players later on, because I just focused the money mostly on the 11. So it's kind of aligned with the concept I had a few game weeks ago. So in terms of opportunity, you might be looking at a mini double game week or a single game week with decent fixtures. I don't think they will be having a massive or a semi-massive.
I think the message is that this is the best week to bench boost. But if you can't, you can't. So if you're using another chip like a wild card, you obviously can't. And if you're like me, you just haven't planned for it. I hadn't had it in my thoughts. I hate the bench boost, so I'm putting off the decision for as long as I can. But if I'd have been a bit more savvy, and if I'd have loved the bench boost more, I'd have planned for this week. I think this is a great week, but it's pointless playing if you've got to use 12 points. Yeah, you hate the bench boost.
Yeah, I also hate the bench boost. Yeah. And so then that's why I'm using it now. Like, just get it out the freaking way. And then if I have fewer regrets if I use it on a game week where there's 14 teams playing twice. Bottom line.
What we're going to do is we move on to the next 4 fixtures. So we'll round off with our captaincy and transfer plans, because obviously this has been quite a long Scoutcast, because there's lots more to talk about. This is, I think, it's one of the biggest double game weeks we've ever had, certainly in my memory, in terms of the fixtures here. But looking at the next 4 game weeks, for this section, it's worth mentioning we're partnered with Football Index, so there may also be players looking at buying through there. That's where you can buy and sell shares in players and using fancy football knowledge with the aim to make a profit. So looking at these fixtures here, just see if there's any teams that spring out, because we're thinking like long-term planning. So we're all going 26, but of course we've got game week 27, 28, and then that blank game week 29 to think about. And what I've done here is I've sorted by difficulty here, and it's Man City come out top. They've got West Ham, Wolves, and then they've got another double game week of Manchester United, Southampton, and then they play Fulham, then they blank. So that's where I'm thinking of starting to move away from my Man City players, and I can possibly get them back when I wildcard again in 30 or 31. So that's another benefit there. Tottenham, definitely a team to target. Burnley, Fulham in this double game week. Then Crystal Palace, Arsenal, who's obviously a derby match, anything can happen. And then they got Villa in 29, so they play 29. Aston Villa themselves obviously play Tottenham in 29, but they've got Leeds and Sheffield United we've discussed this week. Then they got 27, they got Wolves, and game week 28, Newcastle. So great fixtures there. Newcastle themselves, not too shabby. Wolves, West Brom, and Villa and Brighton. That's why some maximum players like that. No one's going to own them. So yeah, maybe go for them. Leicester, great fixtures. Arsenal, Burnley, then they got Brighton and Sheffield United, then a blank. So maybe I should be getting more Leicester in, because if you can move away from them in game week 29, or indeed if you're wildcarding before 29, you can somehow marry up the final 8-9 fixtures with getting covering that blank game week. That's another option as well. But right down there is West Ham at the moment, not great. They've got City, Leeds, Manchester United and Arsenal. These are not great fixtures for them. Wolves have got Newcastle, City, Villa and Liverpool. I mean, these are awful. Manchester United, not too good either really. This is why David last week was talking about getting rid of Fernandes, possibly. Chelsea, Crystal Palace, but then they've got City and West Ham United, Burnley. So this is where Pope is. The switch from Pope to Martinez would be quite shrewd, perhaps. They've got Tottenham and Leicester, then they've got Arsenal and Everton. So I can't see that many clean sheets there. And Arsenal themselves do play in 29, and they're a mixed bag. Leicester, Burnley, Tottenham and West Ham United. But I mean, that's some of the ones at the top and the bottom there. But I don't know if either of you looking at that and sorts out your plans. I don't know whether, Karam, you'd looked at that particularly the next 4 for your wild card, so you can sort of get a team in place.
Yeah, definitely. I think I have cover from pretty much all the top teams in the ticker. The Man City, the Spurs, the Villa, Leicester. As I said, I think that the main reason I wildcarded is to focus on Leicester. It's still undecided to go with a triple, just to be clear on that. But I would definitely have 1, probably 2, maybe 3, because of the fixtures. You look at the double game week, I think they are decent enough, and you can carry them over the next game weeks as well, up until 29, whether I will free hit or not. But certainly I wouldn't mind having them afterwards, because they still have that good run. And Spurs, they have a decent fixtures, but you don't actually know are they decent actually, because of the current form. You just have, I think I mentioned something about Son the last Scoutcast. He's a never captain and never sell. And I'm not, and I also mentioned that Salah, not having Salah is not fun to own, to not own. And I'm starting questioning it now whether I should push the button and take them out, but the fixtures still good for them. So these are the decisions that would go until the deadline day. But I would avoid the bottom line teams. The Fernandes thing is a funny story, because I think if he's the opposite. So whether he whether he plays good or bad, he will get you 12 points somehow. You will open FPL page, you open at the score, you will find 12 points a hole from Fernandes. How? It doesn't matter. So it's really like tough to go without him, even with these. And I totally agree what David said on the strategy and on the tactics, how Man United line up in the bigger games, and we've seen clearly that they sort of grind the nil-nil games, but you never know. That's the thing. And I think
actually changed my mind on him, to be honest.
You did? Okay.
I want to kind of nip in here and be like, I just don't quite want my name attached to this whole Fernandes out bandwagon. So last week it was pre-double game week fixtures, so I was just looking at Chelsea, Man City. You stick Crystal Palace in as a double game week with one of those, and all of a sudden it just completely takes away any concern. So I agree with you absolutely that you can't. I don't think you can move him on now. So yeah, just wanted to just get in there before people saw me as this lunatic that was. Fernandes out.
And this is why we were talking about the possibility of free hitting. So if you want to keep your Leeds assets, but you don't particularly want to play them this week, well, hey presto, they can come back for you for West Ham, Chelsea and Fulham. So there's a mixed bag of fixtures really. So the Chelsea one's the tough one there. Fulham and West Ham away are quite good for Leeds, especially such an attacking side. There. Lots of options, lots to think about there. Just before we move on to our differential pick, which is David's. No, it's Karam's turn this week. David, I was getting confused because
I still have something to say though. I
know you still got something to say, so that's why I was thinking. I must remember David for the differential, but we'll come to that in a minute. Just to mention, you can sign up to Football Index today. They've got a 7-day £500 money back guarantee. There's a link in the description below to sign up, as well as a link. Check out the full terms and conditions. It's for 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. You can check out begambleaware.org, and there's a link for this in the description as well. So yeah, on to the differential. Now, I picked Rafinha a couple of weeks ago, so very chuffed there. And incredibly, David, you picked Minamino, who, although he was benched the second match,
who cares,
he scored and
literally within 20 minutes or whatever.
And the FPL community on Twitter declared you a legend. Because Minamino, no one else was touting his name, but you did there.
Well,
so
the thing I want to add, I just want to add one thing that's absolutely hilarious, and he's going to dig me out for this, but I already did it on Twitter, so it's fine. I wanted to add an interesting subplot to this, because obviously Seb, I was a bit sort of like, oh, that's a bit weird. He was like, I reject that idea, but actually it makes a lot of sense. And then he was very big and bigging me up on Twitter, so thank you, Seb. After last week's show, I got a message from, and I had to double check who this was from based on what it said, from my best mate, who said, I'm sorry to say this, but I hope your differential fails. I just don't rate Minamino, and I have been very public about stating this fact, so I don't want to be proven wrong.
Really?
Well, that ended very well for him. So I just wanted to add
does he have... I mean, you're the editor of a fantasy football website and appearing in front of thousands of people on video. Does he have that sense of... He's been telling people? Who's he been telling?
Well, I was very confused who these people were. I haven't quite ascertained who they were yet. One of them, I think, is a Liverpool fan. I mean, he's an Arsenal fan, so I tend to just take everything he says with a pinch of salt.
Well, you definitely win in terms of you can tell more people about your moves, and especially when they're differentials who score.
He's going to hate me for that, but
no pressure, Karam. Who is your low-owned gem, under 5% ownership for the next 4 game weeks?
Yeah, so the moment I realized that it's my pick now, I have a good history with defenders, and I said like, okay, let me look up for defenders, and then the first one came out to me was Ricardo Pereira, and I was like, okay, without checking his total selected by, he's way, I think, lower than 1%. But then I found more interesting one. I was like, okay, let's go to an attacker this time who has a double game week and he has a good run of fiction. I already mentioned the SCOUTCAST, and probably he is a way to fund Salah back. David has spoiled it a few minutes ago, and it's Mbaye Diagne.
I'm so sorry.
of West Brom. I think he is at 0.9%. In the last... where is he? I think in the last 4 matches, he is joint top for biggest chances total with 5, along with Jamie Vardy. And that's that's very decent at 6 million. Watching him, the eye test, he looked very dangerous against Burnley. And I still can't understand how did he miss the big opportunity where he had the crossbar. So I still think that Diani could be. I do appreciate if a lot of managers are stocked up on a Bamford or getting a Kane plus DCL, and it's hard to fit in a spot. But that's where I like to pick my differential, and because it could allow indeed to go to Salah. And it's funny because I'm picking him as my differential, but I was not planning to get him in my team because I'm on a wild card. It looks perfect time to do that. But maybe now, if I settle back on Salah back, then it could be an option to bring in for one of those players. He has a Newcastle in 27 after the double game week and good fixtures in 28. So yeah, here you go.
Well, you know our thoughts on him. We think he's great. We try to persuade you to get him in. so he gets a thumbs up from me. Great differential. I think we're on a roll.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
here you go.
Okay, let's move on to our transfer and captaincy plan. So I'll just go back to your wildcard picture again, Karam, and just to see if we've managed to bully you into any changes. Overall, are there any particular things you're considering? But also, who are you going to captain? Because you can get any player you want in, so you can captain whoever you want. You can get the very best. So who are you going to captain?
I'm almost certain that I'm going to captain Jamie Vardy. And the vice captain would be Harry Kane. I know that Vardy will not be highly owned and will not be highly captained. And as I said, I think I'm not usually a very aggressive manager in a way that takes a lot of risk. But being conservative this season hasn't worked out my way. So not only I'm probably not gonna own Salah. I'm gonna probably not captain Kane or Son. I'm actually leaning towards Jamie Vardy. Historically, he likes to score against Arsenal, and probably he will be one of the top scorers in double game week. That's my feeling, and that's why I'm gonna captain him, right?
Well, what do you think? Now you've said that, definitely get Son in. Because if you're not going to captain Kane, his effective ownership will be huge. But you can, Kane and Son, as we know, assist and score for each other. So you are definitely mitigating against that. So you've got a nice shield there. You've got the sword with Vardy. So I think that's probably a good move there. Yeah. David, no, I haven't, because you were so busy after the Leeds Southampton game. I haven't got a picture of your 26 squad. So I've got your pre-Leeds match tonight's 25 squad in. So while people that's obviously going to change for 26. But what are your plans? Who are you planning to get in?
Yeah, so Chip, I think, is almost certainly going to be bench boost. I wouldn't be all that upset with at the moment bench boosting McCarthy, Burn, Dallas, and Bamford, who are my 4 guys who have one game. Because everybody else, which is Pope, Maguire, Cancelo, Target, Sterling, Fernandes, Gundogan, Salah, Anguissa, Calvert-Lewin, and Watkins all play twice. So I've got full 11 players. I've been building up to that on purpose because I didn't want to have to wildcard to do this. I wouldn't necessarily mind bench boosting that, but of course, with the high ceiling you get in a game week like this, I'm quite prepared to take some hits to maybe upgrade things, because I do have $1 million in the bank. Now, I'd been a bit uncertain as to who I would be moving on to do this, and to be honest, the wildcard timing is a little bit of has a part to play here, because the people, so Burn, Dallas, and Bamford, I all want for game week 29, which is not necessarily a problem if I'm wildcarding quite soon. You know, if I'm wildcarding between 26 and 29, then actually spending some money in the bank to upgrade a Burn or a Dallas or a Bamford to a double game week player is not necessarily too damaging, other than maybe value of players. So that's going to play a part. At the moment, I'm looking at spending my 1 million to upgrade McCarthy to Areola. And then, even though I've only just signed him, because I feel like getting hold of him again wouldn't be that difficult, I'm actually looking at the leftover money I would have. I could get Burn to Shaw for the double game week. So then, rather than bench boosting McCarthy, Burn, Dallas, and Bamford, I'd be bench boosting Areola, Shaw, Dallas and Bamford, which actually, to be honest, like that looks like the kind of bench you think could score
That's
16 to 20
that's
points.
A bench boost, yeah.
And and that would be a -4. And actually, that's pretty good. I could -8 is hard to do because I think McCarthy and Burn to Ariel and Shaw is solid improvement. Doesn't leave me too much left in the bank to upgrade on Gisa, for example. He would be the only one that I would want to move on from that, because the other 11 I can trust. I don't have any Spurs coverage, but that doesn't bother me because we've kind of discussed what my opinions are on Spurs, and I do just think that I've got more trust in the 11 players I've got. I've not owned Spurs players for the last 3 or 4 weeks because they haven't played like a team worthy of my investment. So why should that change the second they come up against 2 well-organised defences? So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Captaincy very much undecided. I think it's between Calvert-Lewin, Gundogan, Fernandes and Salah. So yeah, quite a lot of people. So I don't know on that one.
Okay, so do check out the captaincy video and podcast we've got earlier today, because that gives more of our thoughts about the captaincy. I know that Calvert-Lewin was flavour of the month, flavour of the week rather, I should say. So here's my bus team so far for 26. So this is not good at the moment, but what I'm looking to do is beef it up a bit. So I've currently got Ederson in goal, John Stones, Loughton and Dallas, Grealish, who's going to be removed, Fernandes, who's currently my vice captain, Salah, Gundogan, and up front I've got Calvert-Lewin, who I'm currently considering for the captaincy, Bamford and Ings, and then on my bench, which I've got Mitchell, Kufal, Rafinha and Steer. So what I'm looking at doing is I've got enough in the bank to remove Grealish and Ings for Harry Kane and Harvey Barnes. I am then going to captain either Harry Kane or Calvert-Lewin. And so there'll be, and that's one of something that's going to be Friday and Saturday, across Friday and the weekend. I'll be thinking, oh, Kane, Calvert-Lewin, and it's going to be one of those ones, and I'll probably get it wrong. But that's the decision I'll make. And Fernandes, I do think is in the mix as well. I just think he'll do well. So looking at my bench there, bench boost is not really an option because I want to replace Grealish and Ings there. So I'm looking for playing a couple of my Leeds players if I play Dallas. But I'm looking at, so what, one of Bamford or Rafinha has to be benched. And I haven't got enough for a bench boost without spending lots and lots of hits. So I'm just going to bench one of Rafinha and Bamford, and that's good. Weirdly, that's going to be my main decision. Everyone else is worrying about how many double game weekers get in, and I'm thinking, which single game weeker shall I bench? And it's going to be one of those two. I think I'm going to play Mitchell over Dallas because they've got Fulham and Manchester United. It's the Gary Cahill comments about how they're focusing much more on defence. I don't know. I still can't assess whether that was just for the Brighton match or not, but it says to me that they're targeting Fulham for a clean sheet because they're going to start seeing them as potential relegation rivals, or rather teams that are threatened with relegation. And so it's in their interest to, it's a classic 6-pointer, so it's in their interest for Fulham to get beaten, or rather Fulham not to score against them. So I wonder with Mitchell might get me something there. It could get me something like 8 points or something. Is that more than Dallas can get? I don't know. But so I'm an example of someone who's not using any chips, and I'm hoping to come out of this with the smallest of green arrows. I don't think I'm capable of getting a large green arrow. This is my. I think every game week in a FPL manager season they have to take their medicine. Gameweek 26 is the one I'm going to, and I've hopefully the extra points I got from my free hit earlier in the season, my wild card later in the season, and the bench boost whenever I use that. Hopefully that will mitigate against it. But yeah, this is I'm not looking forward to this week. I might hide. So anyway, it's been a really long Scoutcast. It's probably been one of our longest ones yet. Now Karam's not going to be with us for a little while because you're busy. You're getting married, Karam. So many congratulations. So whereabouts are you getting married again? I think you're muted, Karam.
Yeah, so I'm back.
There he is. He was
yeah,
quite literally
thanks.
speechless.
He was
at the prospect
speechless.
of getting
Ooh,
married.
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll be flying this Friday to Cairo, Egypt,
Ooh,
and that's where I will spend some time. Yeah, having the wedding and honeymoon and spend some time. So, yeah, thanks a lot. Exciting time. I look forward to it, of course. And yeah, that's why I will probably sit on a wild card where I don't allow anybody to ruin it potentially. So maybe one of the main reasons, if I end up having Salah back, it's like, okay, for the sake of not having a bad weekend, I want to focus on the wedding.
Well,
So
it's a good way to think of the wild card as well.
Yeah.
It's like you've got other, you know, if you're moving house, getting married, you know, you've got to think, you've got more important things to think about. You just want to get your team in good shape and just forget about it.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you, Joe.
Well, great. Well, many congratulations from all at SCOUTCAST, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of messages about that as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks. I will miss the SCOUTCAST for the next few weeks, but yeah, we'll be back soon.
Excellent stuff. And David, thanks so much for joining us as well, because this was a tight squeak to get on with the match finishing like 5 minutes before SCOUTCAST. And I noticed on site you've actually written up a match report about it. In a lot, amazing. Anyway,
well, I mean, it's my job. It's my job, Joe. So I won't glory in that. I was trained by the best sports journalists there are. So that's just how it goes.
So just doing your job, just an honest man doing his job. Anyway, it's a goodbye from me.
A goodbye from me.
Good night, everyone.